All right, here we go. This is our fourth and final episode on professional development here on the VIBE Edu podcast with Kim Gameroz, Josh Stamper, and Mitch Weathers, and yours truly, TJ Vari. And we've been talking about professional development. It's been striking a chord with some folks too on social media. We've talked about impact. We've talked about transformation. We've talked about the professional development day. We've talked about structures, learning, carousels, all kinds of things. But we've put a lot of pressure on PD providers with how to change PD. And today we're going to talk about implementation. Like, how do we get this thing to be turnkey from the time in which we learned the new strategies or the new format to actually implementing in the classroom? So let's kick it off. I'd love to hear from you, Mitch, because I know you do a lot of PD with teachers on these executive functions, and they are not something that are taught, but actually learned. So they need to be embedded. And I think that's a nice meta strategy for us as we discuss this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we talk about professional learning, professional development for teachers, I think the culture of process is really important. And when I do get to speak with teachers on how do we support or promote executive functioning skills in students, I make that point very clearly. I firmly believe that these executive functioning skills aren't taught in the traditional sense of the word, but that they're best learned when students clearly see them modeled. And that's part of the whole binder portfolio. Like, I have to see it, but clearly see them modeled, but I get routine practice with them within the context of the things I'm learning. And that routine practice is where the learning happens. And there's a great native Hawaiian expression that I've worked with some schools in Hawaii, in the state of Hawaii. And I bring this up because it was like the third or fourth educator that pulled me aside after a talk and was like, oh my gosh, there's this native Hawaiian expression that really sums up this approach to executive functioning. And after like the third or fourth person, different times over a few years, I was like, I have to learn this expression because it really hits the nail on the head. And the way it's pronounced is makahana kaike, and ike meaning knowledge. And it can be translated in a few different ways, but the way it was introduced to me is that the knowing is in the doing, that there's certain things that we learn by doing, by action, that the knowledge is actually found in the process. And that's the routine part. Like, over time, routine allows for repetition, right? If this is a predictable routine and we do it every day, then I get practice actually doing this. The knowledge is in the doing. And so that over time, I learn these skills, not because they're taught, and it's okay. I'm not saying you can't introduce a specific habit or technique or strategy or skill, but we have to give students practice with them. And I think that's got to be a culture that translates over into teacher professional learning as well. There's going to be always like a spectrum. Like, some people are going to grab it. I can sit in your teacher, TJ, back in your old district, and did an organized binder training, and it was like, got it, boom. Like, probably a week later, everything distinct. And other of us, we learn in different ways over time, and just having that be an expectation as a next step with PD, but also understanding that it's not about perfection. It's about this process. It's about makahana kaike, this doing over time. So I think that resonates, I can say, for me as a teacher, that, and it also necessitates or mandates ongoing conversation, because we're recognizing that this is how we're implementing this and rolling this out. So
Kim, you talked about support last time in our last episode. I know with your business and the things that you're doing, I know that you are on campuses providing support. What does that look like after something's been laid out?
Good question.
I know that is a good question. So, what I love to do is I love to pull teachers out of their classroom, right? Because then they can breathe and they can be away from kids for a bit. So, they're not thinking about behaviors, not thinking about the chaos or the riffraff or whatever, right? They're pulled out, and then we can say, what's working? right? What's feeling really good. And then also what's still feeling a little tricky for you, right? What's kind of sticky? What's like, oh my God, it's like, I can't figure this out, right? And having open, honest conversations and then coming up with next steps and then going right back into their classroom. And so whether that is just myself and mentor teacher and that teacher that we're working with, or maybe it's a small cohort and you have your colleagues in there too, going back into the classroom and trying out right then and there. But also it's not now you're on the spotlight, go, let's just sit back and watch you, you know. I love to either run alongside them or have one of my mentor teachers run alongside them. Usually we're like down on the ground, like, you've got this. This is your classroom, right? But I'm going to whisper in your ear just in case you need a little like, oh, remember this sort of a thing. Or we can prep something for them real quick so that then they can just take it and run with it. And then afterwards, you know, it's like a 5-minute chunk. Just try something. It's a conversation, an intentional conversation, or setting kids up for success somehow, do whatever they're doing in the moment. And then we pull them back out right after it happens and we talk about it and we reflect. And for some reason, I feel like that model, like, it really has so much impact, but it also is so hard for principals to be open to, or administration to go, okay, yeah, we trust you. Because I think, again, they're just so used to just talk at the teachers, just have them go and they can do this. When, like, no, you need somebody to hold your hand and walk you through, Mitch, walk you through the doing, right? Walk you through all of that so you can try things out, so you get to know more about yourself, that your next step's what you need and also what your kids need. But also, every single group of kids is going to be different, right? And so getting to go then into another classroom and see what's going on there and trying out either what you just saw or tweaking it a bit. It's all in the tweaks is what we say. I know, Josh, you were able to come in and be with my teachers, and we've been talking about the first days of school, and we were like, you know, listening to conversations. They're like, what do I do first? What do I do after that? And we're like, okay, these are non-negotiables. So yes, Mitch, like, what are you doing to support the executive functioning skills of your kids? And we've got systems for that. So those are non-negotiables for me. I don't know how you even run a classroom. I need those things to support me, right? But then also, what are the intentional conversations you're having? And then throughout the rest of the school year, we get to just tweak all of those things, right? What are you experiencing? What's going on? Well, this is the tweak you need to make. This is maybe you need to say it before this time of day, or you need to reflect after, and that's how it gets to feel. So, I mean, that stuff works like gold, but is everybody willing and open to have that sort of coaching and support? That's where, you know, it's different for everyone.
Mm. But that, the important part there, whether it's a coach or even internal conversations, is that there is ongoing dialogue after practice that I think is really, really critical, because we, you know, the more we can be in conversation with one another through the process, there's more cross-pollination, there's inherent natural accountability because we're talking about it. But that it's okay to be in process.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah, I think there needs to be a temperature check as far as leadership goes too, of like, what is that support level that's needed for that person? I mean, there's plenty of folks that, you know, they're smiling and shaking their heads throughout the PD. And then it's not until you have that one-on-one conversation that you realize they're extremely uncomfortable with what was provided to them. And maybe it's a lack of experience, maybe it's a lack of knowledge, maybe they just don't have the confidence to actually try in there because they don't want to fail. And so then you're there to say, okay, I can support you. I can either model it for you. I can have you do it, and I can provide feedback after you're doing it. You know, like, there's a lot of things that you can do. But I think the main thing is just allowing the teacher to understand, like, I'm here to partner with you in this, instead of me just being a top down saying, you got to do this. And I expect it to be done perfectly the first time and every time. And this is the outcome that I desire. And I think if you can kind of break that wall down of letting them know that there's no judgment. It's about, this is a new process, a new initiative. And then how may I serve for you to feel comfortable in this and be successful in your classroom? And I think sometimes that ball is dropped for sure.
I think one thing that I'm hearing, though, from strategically that I don't want to get lost is the seeing it part. So like you're going to find out whether they did it or not if you plan to go see it. So Kim is going and doing job embedded PD. Mitch talked about the students as learners, that we don't know if they know how to do these things unless we see them do it. We know they learn when we watch it. And so somehow built into the structure of the PD, is for implementation's sake, which is what we're talking about here, has to be seeing it. Somebody has to go watch it. And when we don't see it, we should not directly assume insubordination. We should assume that there's actually a lack of support. They didn't learn it, or they aren't comfortable with it yet. And that's where I like to shift. I say a culture of why to a culture of try. We've had so many years of what's your why, what's your why, what's your why. Personally, I'm all wide out. I'm into it. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm with that stuff. I think people need purpose, and I'll even conduct activities with that. But I also want a culture of try, which is just do it poorly. Like I watched a teacher implement a strategy for the first time. I was with a bunch of administrators. I was assistant superintendent. I was there with some assistant principals. We were doing PD for them on what to look for in a classroom. We saw this teacher try this new strategy. It was horrible. And the assistant principal was like mortified. Like the assistant soup's there. This teacher did the thing. We trained them and she did it and she didn't do it good. And I said, I celebrated. We got in the hallway. I was like, that was awesome. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I've seen that teacher like 10 times. Like that's new for her. And they were like, but it wasn't good. I'm like, well, it wasn't there before. So I'm all about that incremental change. Like we can fix that. What we can't fix was when it wasn't happening or she wasn't willing to take a risk. She knew we were coming today.
Yeah.
And she tried that. That's a cultural shift. And I'm going to celebrate that every time because I want those incremental changes. That's what spawns growth. We're not going to do PD and then everybody's going to be excellent at it tomorrow. That can't be the expectation. And so we just need a culture of try.
Yeah, because there's still growth there. I mean, I can think of like us doing relationship circles. We laid it out. You know, here's a structure. We'd love for everyone to do it. It takes 30 seconds in your classroom. You get to know your kids. Here's some low-level questions to do. I went to a classroom. Teacher gave a really intense high-level question. And by the end, kids were crying. They were at the counselor's office. They were wanting to go home. It was like a hot mess. And I could have reprimanded that teacher. I could have easily made her feel like dirt for, you know, making a mistake. But like her heart was in the right place and she did try it, like you're saying, TJ. So it's like, okay, let's come back to the table. We can make some shifts here. I think your intention was good, and I'm glad that you at least tried it. But I mean, if the leader doesn't do it correctly, I mean, you could scar that person and then it's lost where they're never going to try that strategy again. And they're going to throw their hands up and feel, you know, terrible about the whole situation. So I think there's you need to be intentional in regards to that support, but you also need to celebrate, even if there's a small amount of growth. And it might be messy, might be terrible in the moment, but like you said, TJ, I think there's something to mold there to actually be excellent in the future. It just takes a process of several touch points and having that support, not just once. It's not a one and done. It's like a full year, 2 years, 3 years, or whatever the initiative is that you're rolling out. So I think there's a lot more to think about than just like either they were successful or they were a failure.
I think a part of this, piggybacking on that, Josh, is when it is an external professional development provider, that the homework's really done on them and what they bring. And I say that in light of giving teachers the opportunity to continue and dive back into their learning at times that aren't just tied to our PD days that are on our calendar.
Yeah,
that's what Kim's doing. That's what I do in my team with, we call them follow-ups. So we're back. That still feels a little bit like PD because we're carving time out. We may have been able to walk classrooms, but we're not as embedded as what Kim explained a little bit ago. But in addition to that, it made me think there's a school we're working with in Southern California, and anyone that is a teacher that's participating in an organized binder rollout, yes, there's the implementation. Yes, there's ongoing support. And we have a teacher dashboard that has all of our like vignettes from the training video. Like we have an online self-paced course, and there's a whole self-paced course. And you like choose your own adventure when it comes to PD. And I see it all the time, teachers logging in at a time that makes sense for them. This just happened earlier this week, and I took a screenshot and sent it to the principal to say, hey, check this out. Yeah. This is one of your teachers. It's summer, and they're in this course reviewing. They've sat through the implementation training. They've used Organized Binder for a couple of years now, but they're on that growth path. They're over that process over time. So I think that's something when we talk about that rollout, it can't just be the solution or the intervention or the programming that is, we've chosen this because it meets this need and right aligns to our goals, but then that what's the process look like? And I think even, and not that every PD provider has to have a book, but if you have a book that's aligned to that, well, who knows how many people are diving into a book, and which is why TJ has told me for like a decade to write a book. But it's part of the, I don't know, process, you'd say. I don't know, you guys need to iterate on what I'm saying, but I think it's important to have those other dimensions of learning available.
I've gotten super candid about that. Sorry, Kim. I've gotten super candid about that when I go in to provide PD. It's like, yeah, we'll come and do the keynote, or we'll come in for the day, but let's build in a webinar series, or let's build in coaching, on-site coaching, or a lot of school districts, actually, this is a good shift. In the last couple of years, we've been hired on 3 and 4 year contracts to do leadership development for schools, Joe and I.
And that's a new paradigm. That's awesome.
It's amazing when the superintendent or assistant sup comes in and like, we want to do webinars, we want on-site coaching for this group, the new leaders need this, and we're going to have you back 6 times throughout the year because that's what we can afford in this particular budget. I'm like, wow, that is a real vision, and we want 3 years worth of it because we want to get this to actually work for schools. So I'm refreshed by that. And one thing I want to make sure we talk about on today's show too is teacher strategies. Like we do tend to, and I know Josh and I in particular tend to focus on the school leader, the district leader, because that's what my most recent positions. But I also like to think at the teacher level, in the right culture, we should name what we're doing as new and risk. So one strategy, again, in the right culture, is to go to the PD. Now, I would make this, if I was really talking about the leader side, I might make this an expectation. But if I'm a teacher and it's not the expectation, I might come out of a PD and say to my supervisor or an instructional coach, hey, on Thursday, I'm going to try that thing that we learned.
Yeah.
I love to have somebody come in and see me do it and provide me with feedback. If it could be Kim Gameroz, double down. But if it can't, let's video and send it to Kim. Like, let's break this down somehow, whether it's recording or somebody being in the room, whether it's a peer or supervisor. I think that's critical. And we've said it already, but I just want some strategies for people to name it, call it out, and invite somebody to come watch you do something different. Because it says a lot, right? It says, 1, I want to try. 2, I want somebody to see it. 3, I want some feedback. And 4, I might mess this up, and I don't want you coming by thinking I'm going to get it right. You might show up on Thursday anyway. Let's at least name the fact that might be not my best.
So one of the things with teaching Inside Out that, like, when I think of everything, like the full package that we do, right? It is the in-person twice during the school year for however big. I mean, if it's multiple schools in your school district, we're there for days. If it's just a couple schools that we're talking about, we're there for a day and a half maybe, and we're out. But another part is the ongoing, right? The Zoom sessions where we're talking about what's working, what's not working, right? And then Mitch, you had me going, yeah, we do that too, where I support your team, your leadership team, whoever that is, in creating your own sustainable website that then you can tweak, right? And so we give you the systems and you get to decide what order you really think they need to be in, or if you have other things you need to plug in there that they've already been fed because they're important because you had this initiative and they did a 2-year something or other, whatever, plug that in. Where does it go? And the videos that you're watching of that go in there are teachers within your district. So you can't just say, oh, well, our kids aren't like those kids, No, those are your kids. Those are your kids. And to be able to have, lower elementary through middle school and high school go click, click, click. Therefore, it looks pretty to anybody. Anybody is enticed to go, oh, yeah, I want to see just high school. And they can say, okay, in August, this is what we are all doing. This is what's expected. But again, like we've said, that takes years to get to, years. And even after 3, you're still going, wait, I need to get some more videos of this because this teacher is doing like something amazing in there, right? We got to have that on there. Then I was also thinking, we have a school up in Northern California. We've been working with them for a couple years, and depending on what their budget is, always determines the amount of support. But one thing I love about that school and that team is that principal and that AP are all in and doing the work too. So whatever it is that we're talking about, then we have like a Voxer group with our administrators that we've connected, like lone schools, we Voxer them together. And to see administrators taking pictures of, hey, I just used this system or this conversation starter with these kids who came into my office because, I don't know, something happened out on the playground. Look, it worked. Now that administrator can go into a classroom and go, hey, and it's the exact same system. It's the exact same language. They can support the teacher. They know what they're looking for. They know how to support. They know how to go, hey, have you tried this? I just tried this in my office 10 minutes ago. That is changing a culture. And that's, I think, it's rare. It truly is rare. But when it's done right, it is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. That's why when TJ shared the multi-year, that was my first thought is, wow, like what a vision. I totally agree, but allocating, like committing to that is tricky. We had a school that the principal had a vision for consistency, and there was a time where the budget allowed for a 5-year purchase. A 5-year vision is probably a better way to say it. And we were all locked in and planning, and then it all got shut down because it's multi-year. So that's really thinking outside of the box, but I would imagine it has to be at the superintendent level to commit in that fashion.
Yeah.
It just has to be earmarked. You're right that at the superintendent level, it's probably the easiest and most viable way to facilitate it. But even if you're a principal and you get Title II funds or something like that, which I know is controversial right now, but any title money or regular money that you would get, it could be local dollars even, but to say I'm going to earmark that for something that's going to be a theme for as long as I'm here, I think that is the vision. It's like, look, I'm not going to spend that on something different every year, which is what happens.
I think teachers would be like, even if it's not like their top initiative they wanted, but that consistency over time, as opposed to the new thing, like, okay, well, we're doing this, now we're doing it. Like, so that to go back to part of this equation.
Yeah. I want to go back to what TJ was talking about too, of like teachers calling it out. I think if an initiative is 3 to 5 years and they know it's here for a long time, they're more likely to call it out and say, well, this isn't going away, so I want to work on it. Come into my classroom and check that out. And to put my admin lens on too, real quick, just to share this out, is like sometimes that can be intimidating. The view of an admin coming into your class is, for a lot of folks, a got you moment. And so, you walk into their classroom and they're getting them up from the desk and they're running to a kid and they're pretending like they've been talking to them for a while. And you're like, oh, you don't need to do that, right? And I had that thousands of times happen. So For me, what I did was I put a construct in place where it was a backwards visit. And what that meant was the teacher would tell me what I was coming in to visit for, right? So it was high level questioning, or this is this strategy I've never used before and I want to try it out, and allowing them to understand, like, I'm not there to evaluate you. I'm just here to help you out and to give you some support, right? And so having that in place allowed those who may not have ever asked me to come in their classroom voluntarily to then feel comfortable enough to say, okay, this isn't something where it's going to be documented somewhere and they've got me in this moment. It's more about like helping them out in that initiative. And so I think it's just a construct that we need to think about, just having part of that culture piece that we were talking about before, to allow them to have the opportunity to like say, hey, come in and just check this small thing out. It might be 10 minutes I'm in there, and maybe like they get to decide, be here for the whole class period or be here for 5 minutes just to check this one thing out. But just having a system in place to allow them to be able to share and get your feedback on things.
Josh, save the good stuff, dude. This is the end of our 4-part series on PD. The next 4-part series is on teacher evaluations. So you gotta hold back some of those nuggets of wisdom for when we're actually talking about.
That's undocumented. Right, that's undocumented.
Bridging the gap. Let's keep in mind, everybody. I was just thinking, there are teachers working in schools, passionate, wanting to change the world. And none of what we're talking about is going on. And that's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
And if you're that teacher and you happen to be listening to this, reach out to us if you want to connect and have support, even if it's one-on-one, whatever it might look like, because this job is hard enough. And if you're in a space where you really do feel like you're kind of going at it alone and you're switched on enough to be tuning into podcasts and trying to enact your own professional learning, don't give up. We're here for you.
Yeah. Well, and go back to the other concept, was like starting a movement. Mm-hmm. Like there's two things you can do in an environment like that. One, you can try to change it from whatever seat you're in. Start a movement, a small group of people who want to meet up during after school hours or during your planning period or whatever the case may be, lunchtime. I used to have a lunch group when I was a teacher, and we talked about teaching. Like that's what we talked about. And I learned a lot from that group. It was one of the better groups early in my career. So A, start a movement, and B, I hate to say it, but it's a teacher shortage. And we predicted that long before COVID. And that's one of our books, Building a Winning Team, and another one, Retention for a Change, is about teacher retention. Like if you're a teacher, you're up for grabs. If I was a principal, I'd be building a culture right now, and I'd be taking everybody's best teachers and everybody's new teachers, because those are the two most vulnerable populations. I'd have a culture that just attracted all the new ones and all the best ones. But if you're in an environment and your teacher can't change it, get a different environment. I hate to say it, because I don't like I think consistency is really important for kids, but tolerating a bad culture is also bad for yourself, which is bad for kids.
Right.
I'm like literally beaming over here. I mean, the people that are watching, I'm like, I can't even, I have like a plastered smile on my face, because that's why I wrote Becoming the Bison. That's why I started VIBE Edu. That's why I started both my businesses, was to get the real ones, get the ones who want support, get the ones who feel alone in this work. It is, I mean, I do pride on myself. Like the teachers, Josh got to see 20 of them, 20 out of, there's a gazillion, but like
rock stars.
They come from all different walks of life, all different states across the United States, dealing with all different things. We had our teacher in Iowa was part of a school district in Perry where there was a school shooting just 2 years ago. I mean, they are dealing with all different things, and they are the best. They are the best of the best. It's like the new ones, like you're saying, and the good ones. Like that's who's part of my community. And those are the ones that show up, not just for their students, but for themselves. And I just know, like you said, Mitch, when people are listening, people are watching, and you kind of go, there are people out there that get it. There are people out there. You mean it doesn't have to be this way? No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. So whether that means following us and listening to us in the podcast, coming to VIBE EDU in person in Anaheim on August 1st, hopping into a Facebook group. I have Becoming the Bison, the Facebook group. I mean, there are people that are your people, and I'm just glad that you guys are mine. So thank you. As we wrap up, like TJ, you want to wrap this up? Wrap it up for us, baby.
Yes, this has been a lot of fun, lots of giggles and some laughs, and great, I think, wisdom from the folks on this show who are dropping nuggets for school leaders, teachers, counselors, anybody who's been listening for the last 4 episodes about professional learning. Hopefully that helps you to change your mindset. Hopefully it helps you to change the culture in your school. We've said it several times, start your own movement. In the next 4 episodes of the VIBE EDU podcast, we're going to be talking about teacher evaluations. And I do want to go informal and formal, Josh. So I want to hit on any way in which we can provide feedback for teachers. And guess what? We'll probably start with how bad it is. That's how we started the PD section. So we'll see you then. Tune in, like, follow, all the things. DM us if you need anything, and we'll see you next time.